It is January 23rd, 2017, day 3 of the Second American Revolution. I'm Israel Anderson, and we need to talk. Congrats, first of all, to Travis Turk for winning this week's engagement prize, which was 6 pints of edible cookie dough by a Big Dipper Dough Company created by Austin Grozier, who is a Ron Paul supporter, busy in the 2011-12 campaign, went on to create his first company at age of 20. He is now 21 and has got his second company. Well done. There are more than one way to serve your country. You can, of course, join the military, or you could become an entrepreneur. Entrepreneurs serve their country, they're job creators, they create the economy. Be about it, be about it. Entrepreneurship is the way to go. You'll never get wealthy in a job. Always look for multiple streams of income. Well, today is an incredible day, and Trump is following through, so we're going to spend all day today talking about what he has done. Pretty darn incredible. Let's start with TPP, the Trans-Pacific Partnership. This thing that Hillary Clinton hated, and then she loved, and then she hated, and it depends what day of the week it was. But of course, it's all just politicking. And here is Trump right from the beginning. TPP and NAFTA, worst things you've ever seen. Get rid of them. Today, Donald Trump signed an executive order officially removing the United States from any interest in the Trans-Pacific Partnership. It is done. It is over. We are not revisiting it. It's done. We're out. It's over. It's amazing, isn't it? When we look at what Donald Trump has done in the first few days on the job, there's no doubt that by the end of this week, he will have done more in his first week as president of the United States than any president in American history, without qualification. It's absolutely phenomenal. The Mexico City policy has been reenacted. Now, what is that? Everyone was asking, what the heck is the Mexican? I had to Google. I had no idea. But I'm staying with some friends who are older, and they knew all about it. This is a policy that has gone in and out throughout different administrations. It provides federal funding to foreign countries to promote and provide abortions. Abortions. I'm not kidding you. Taxpayer money going towards promoting and funding abortions. Now, blows my mind. I mean, what do you say to that? Are you serious? I mean, it's worse, that we've got Planned Parenthood here, but still, it just doesn't make any sense. So it's over. I guess the policy's been reenacted, and Donald Trump is going to find some way to make that permanent. We don't want another president coming in, although the Democrats are not going to win for a very long time. This is the Second American Revolution. We don't want some president getting in 50 years. Might be when the Democrats finally regain office. I don't think the Democratic Party is probably just going away. But good time for a new political party to rise up. Certainly won't be the Libertarian Party. God, Gary Johnson, Bill Weld. Sorry, getting off track. So that's over, right? No more federal funds going to promote and fund international, for Pete's sake, what is this? International abortions. We're not just content with murdering our own unborn. And yes, I am absolutely unashamedly pro-life. How could you possibly take any other position? But we have to go kill children overseas as well. I guess the drone bombings just weren't enough. Actually, now let's talk about those drone bombings. The criticisms immediately, it came out from the Daily Mail in the UK, a rag that sometimes gets it right, often gets it wrong. They put out an article stating that from some anonymous source who could not go on the record for the sake of anonymity, that a drone bomb or a missile had been fired by a drone over the weekend, and of course that means it was Trump's fault. Guys, cabinet hasn't even been sworn in. I mean, what are you doing? Obama's people are going to be running the show for the next few days. Certainly they were over the weekend, and certainly they are now. But there were some very interesting activity that happened yesterday in Syria. Now, it's always interesting to see the libertarian response to issues like this. We sometimes don't think too critically about things. For example, destroying ISIS. Who is ISIS? It's a question that needs to be asked before you can even have a conversation about whether we should be intervening with ISIS or not. Now, let's get a little conspiratorial, but I think we all know, and I think many journalists like Glenn Greenwald have brought this to light, that this is the truth, that ISIS really was created by Barack Obama. And I know that if you're a bit of a lefty, I know that's probably like, what? You're freaking mad. Are you stupid conspiracy nuts, blah, blah, blah. But no, actually, the evidence does lead all the way back to that. And, the evidence really has come out during the Obama administration that funding and weapons and training were going to ISIS because these people were supposed to be a fighting force that were going to do certain things like overthrow Assad, right? So George Soros is also part of that, and this is his fighting, his militant fighters in the Middle East that are stirring up trouble to maintain the status quo in the American military-industrial complex. And it's important for them to create that instability in the Middle East, and they use ISIS to do this. ISIS has declared war against the United States of America, so they are absolutely a legitimate target. Overnight, a whole bunch of targets were attacked. Now, it came out from the Associated Press that this was the very first mission since World War II where Russia and America flew together, wingtip to wingtip, in sorties, taking out ISIS targets in Syria. Now, about an hour later, somebody from the State Department said that's absolutely rubbish. So the question was then asked in the White House briefing this afternoon or midday today, which I watched live, and the question was asked, and the official response is, we don't know, and it wasn't an evasion. You'll have to talk to the State Department about that. We really don't know, but that is the kind of thing you should expect from this administration, that we will work with partners against terrorism. So we are going to see whether it happened yesterday or not, and the State Department just doesn't want to say anything for strategic reasons, whatever. And there could be good reasons not to leak that information right now. But it is absolutely bona fide that this White House administration under Donald Trump will work with Russia and anyone else in order to destroy legitimate terrorist targets. Now, the thing here is that as soon as this happens, libertarians get upset and say, see, new guy just like the old guy, same old, nothing is changing, no change in foreign policy. And look, that's nonsense. We've got to be brave enough to face the facts here. Sometimes it's just like, well, if it's not Ron Paul, it's not good enough. Let me tell you, all these negative Nancys out there, these people that are just driving this default narrative of negativity, it's so demoralizing, but it's out there, it's so pervasive. But it's these people that if Ron Paul had won, they would be saying the same things about him. And you want proof? I was, as most of you know, full-time activist in both the 2007-8 and 2011-12 campaigns for Dr. Paul. I worked full-time for him for a very long time. And we saw it then. There was a time in the 2007-8 campaign where Ron Paul was the front runner for a few weeks. And there was the same thing in the 2011-12 campaign. There was a few weeks there where Ron Paul was also the front runner. Everyone has their day. And it was during those times where you get those cynical libertarians who would come out and say, see, he's just one of them, or they wouldn't be letting him be the front runner. It's absurd, right? And here's the thing, these people are not going to stop. You just need to shut them down, right? Turn them off. Just ignore them, right? There's no point in engaging with a cynic. This is not somebody that has a legitimate beef. This is not somebody that has a legitimate argument. This is somebody that has put on the blinders of cynicism. And cynicism is the Dead Sea. Nothing lives there, right? There's no arguing with a cynic. Every time you prove your point, they will move the goalposts every single time until finally they'll just start playing a different game altogether. There's no end to it. There is no satisfactory explanation for a cynic. There can't be, because they're a cynic. They can never concede that something might actually just be really, really good. Well, how about that? Is that even possible? Not to a cynic, it's not. Also in news today, so have we finished this issue? So we're taking out ISIS targets. Once the ISIS targets are taken out, military action is over, right? You're going to see a withdrawal from military bases around the world. You're going to see the inefficiencies of the military come drastically down. And so don't be too concerned about the spending to rebuild the military. The military stockpile is very, very low right now. We would not want to fight a full-scale war like against China or Russia, for instance, at this moment in history. It would be very, very bad. There is a good chance we would lose. So it's very important right now to rebuild the military. And again, because I've been with Dr. Paul for so long and I know his policies inside out, back to front, you may not remember, but one of his presidential platforms was the immediate assignment of 5 brand new submarines if he won the presidency. There was a rebuilding and a strengthening of the military, shrinking back from overseas, removing people from overseas bases, closing a lot of those bases down. And I know that's going to happen. They won't say it yet. They won't say it yet because there's a lot of neocons that won't allow the cabinet to be approved if they do, right? Unfortunately, we need through the cabinet process. It's going to take a little bit. All right, let's move on. So a federal hiring freeze today was also enacted by executive order. Now remember, these executive orders are not the same kinds of illegal executive orders that Barack Obama and George Bush was using. I'm not saying that he won't, but none of these so far are the illegal kinds of executive orders. What is illegal and what is an illegal kind of executive order? Well, an executive order is simply an order from the executive, the president, to the federal agencies, right? He has the privilege of being able to communicate with them, and he does that through executive orders and memorandums. Now, all of the orders that have been written to date since he was sworn in, they have all been simply commands to the federal agencies on doing things. None of this has been legislation. There has been no new law created by any of the executive orders signed by Donald Trump so far. So these are correct constitutional uses of executive orders. So please, again, stop being so cynical. Look at what is actually going on. There is nothing wrong with an executive order. The problem is not executive orders. The problem is misuse and abuse of executive orders when people like George Bush Jr. and like George H.W. Bush and Barack Obama use executive orders to create law, like, for instance, creating entire departments, right? Wasn't the EPA created entirely through an executive order? That's an illegal executive order. That's creating new legislation. You can't birth a new department through an executive order. These executive orders are communications to the federal agencies to do particular things. All right? They're all legal. They're all good. There's nothing for us to complain about here. So we've got to be careful, right? If you're going to complain, make sure your complaint is legitimate. And I don't carry the water for Donald Trump. So when he's going to screw up, I am going to call him out. I'll call him out right now, in fact. There's like 37 things he said he was going to do on day one. Well, he hasn't done them. He's done quite a few now as of today. But there's still a whole bunch left, right? And I expect they'll be done over the next week and 3. But they weren't done day one. That was the campaign promises. Now, still, even with that said, this rhetoric, I understand that. I'm not trying to give him a pass, right? He shouldn't have said that because it's not very accurate. You can't do everything on day one. But when we look back at what's going to have happened, let's say in the first 3 weeks of this administration, it's going to absolutely blow your frickin' mind. So let's be a little sensible with our criticisms as well. Federal hiring freeze today on every single federal agency except the military, right? And it's very important because of what we just discussed about having to build the military back up again. And because there's a lot of attrition in the military, people don't stay a whole long time in the military, so we need to be able to rehire people because a lot of people leaving. So don't get too worried about that yet. The rest of the federal government is unable to hire anybody as of right now. That is exciting. That means the federal government will shrink through attrition. And, you know, I know that I'll keep saying this, but I'm, if you notice, I said all this. I nailed everything. Okay. I got everything right. I'll keep getting it all right. I can't even tell you how. And so really, I mean, I can't even, it's not even blowing my own trumpet. I don't know how I'm getting it right? But I have. And I've got videos going back 7 or 8 months where I've detailed all of this and exactly what would happen. And it's all following everything to the letter that I said it would. We're going to experience something radical here. We are experiencing something radical here. This is why I keep using the term, and I'll continue to. This is the Second American Revolution. And in time, people are going to use that term as a common term. It's going to become commonplace, not just used by me. I may have been the first, but I will by no means be the last, because soon, or maybe not soon, but within a few years perhaps, as we look back at what has happened, that's the term that's going to become the prevalent term to describe what happened when Donald Trump became president of these United States. So that's exciting. No more hirings. Fantastic. Now, also this morning in a meeting with business leaders this morning, Donald Trump reiterated a figure, 75% of regulatory cuts. He said this back when he met with Carrier. He was giving the talk at Carrier, and he was saying to the audience that was there that he had just talked to them, and he was so surprised that the biggest deal was not taxation, it was regulations. And that was the first time he gave a number. And actually, I just realized there's another time as well, but that was the first time he gave the number. He said 75% reduction in regulations. And then it was during a speech about 3 or 4 months ago, where he also reiterated the 75% number. And today, during a meeting with business leaders at the White House, he reiterated that figure, except he actually made it even better. He said that he wants to reduce the regulatory burden by 75% or maybe more, quoting him, or maybe more. All right. So when my libertarian peers were for the last, 6 months trying to tell me that Donald Trump would not reduce the size of government, and I tried to explain that I could, and these people, they want facts and they want figures because they're very logical, rational people, and I am too, but I'm also an intuit, and you've got to intuit these things. You're not going to arrive at the conclusions I have by looking at the facts. It's all between the lines. If you can't read between the lines, you're never going to understand what's going on. You've got to intuit these things. You can't achieve. You can't get to these. What am I trying to say? You can't get to where I've been explaining through rationality and logic. You just can't get there because there's nothing for you to go on. You've got to be able to have a bigger picture perspective and intuit these things. Right? I'm sorry, it's the only way that it works. And you can criticize me and say, well, you're just being illogical. Sure I am, but I'm also being correct. So, you figure that out in your own time. So let's drop this whole, default narrative of negativity and criticism of President Trump. He is absolutely going to be the most libertarian president we've seen since the founding of this nation. And this is why I've said, and I upset people, and if it came down to Rand Paul and Donald Trump and I had the deciding vote, you would have Donald Trump as president because I would have voted for him over Rand Paul. And you think, well, how could you, Israel? Listen, because I don't carry the water for anybody. I'm going to make the most sensible choice. And yes, I would probably prefer Rand Paul's policies over Donald Trump's policies, but with Donald Trump, I know shit is going to get done. And Rand Paul would have been stonewalled all 4 years. And if he had even won re-election, which he probably wouldn't have because they would have stonewalled him, then he would have just been stonewalled again for another 4 years. In 4 weeks, Donald Trump will have been able to achieve far more than Rand Paul could have successfully achieved in 8 years as president of the United States. Not because Rand sucks, but because the way government is sucks. They wouldn't have let him do it. But we've got somebody right now. It doesn't matter whether they're going to let Donald Trump do it or not. He's the frickin' commander-in-chief, and he won't take... I mean, you know what I'm talking about. He gets shit done. Make sure you check out the pinned post on my Facebook page on how to win this week's Engagement Award simply by liking and sharing and leaving great comments on my Facebook post. You can win a terrific prize every single week. So go and check that out. And talking about Rand Paul, his brother, Ronnie Paul, and we have actually been involved in a network marketing business for 4 years, actually just over 4 years, since the last presidential campaign wound down. Ronnie Paul and I and Doug Weed and a large number of the larger Ron Paul family got involved in a network marketing business. We've done exceptionally well, and we're looking for people that want to make some serious income this year. If that's you, find a way to reach out to me and contact me. I don't care how you do it. Just get a hold of me, and I will send you to a video that you can watch of Ronnie Paul and I explaining what we're all about. Have a fantastic day. Thank you so much for listening to me. And please, if you found this useful, give it a thumbs up, share it somewhere, leave a really excellent comment below, and I will see you tomorrow on We Need to Talk. Bye-bye.